Hello, today what we're going to be doing is making some bass fishing jigs, and the first thing I want to go over is safety. The most important rule when working with molten lead is that you do not want any children anywhere near the melted lead, the molten lead. Lead can cause severe permanent injury, and it's no place for children to be playing near. Also pets, you do not want pets anywhere near the molten lead as well. They could knock the pot over and again causing severe injury to yourself, the pet, or others around. So if the children want to watch and learn how you're doing your jig making, then you can have them watch through a window or elsewhere, or from afar, but nowhere near the pot. Always want to make sure that you have eye protection and a pair of gloves for safety when you're working with the molten lead as well, at all times whenever you're pouring. And then another very important topic is ventilation. You do not want to pour lead inside. It's very harmful, and you can die from inhaling vapors from it. So you want to work with the lead outside. One warning there is that if you have the threat of any possible precipitation, you do not want to do this outside unless you are under total cover. You cannot let water get in contact with molten lead. It is extraordinarily explosive if that occurs, and will again cause permanent scarring or damage, or worse. You do not want to do this underneath the cover of trees that may have like dew or recently fallen rain on the leaves. If the breeze would blow and blow water down into the pot, it will spatter, and it'll again cause injury. Water dripping off a roof, if you have an AC unit nearby that water could be dripping off of, you do not want any possibility of water getting in the molten lead, because it will explode, it will harm you. And then talking about the different tools that I have, I've used in the past this pair of needle nose pliers to cut off the overpour or the spro that comes out on top of the lead after you've done pouring. You pop the lead head out. Actually, I've got, so this overpour is what I'm talking about, and when you cut that off, this area in the needle nose were not large enough for me to cut those off, so I purchased this pair of pliers here. The wire cutters did a nice job, but what they would do is they would end up leaving a mark in the actual jig head where when I painted them, you would see an indentation in there, and I did not like that. And so I found these channel lock pliers. They're channel lock model 911, 911, and they do a pretty fantastic job. They'll just take the lead and cut it right off like that, leaving you with a slight burr on top. And at that point, I usually have a trash container nearby, and you can take the metal file and you can literally just file off very simply that little bit of overpour or the actual burr that's left behind, leaving you with a finished head ready for painting. One other thing that I will show you is the lead that I use is made by Lee. You can buy the lead from other places. I recommend very strongly that you only use pure lead. You can buy lead, sometimes tire weights, you can use those, but it tends to have an alloy of some sort, so or it is an alloy, and it tends to be harder. The weight is not consistent with what the jig is supposed to be, so if you're trying to pour a 3/8 ounce jig and you have an alloy, you may not get that same weight. Chances are very good you will not get that same weight. So pure lead is an absolute. And then just one last thing before you start pouring, you can lay the actual mold on top of the pot when you're heating the pot, and that will help get the mold itself warmed up to temperature, so the pour will go better. And lastly, the base pins that are inside your mold, when you have the base pins which are inside the mold right here, the base pins over time will start to wear as they heat up and cool down, as you pull them in and out with pliers if they're a little tight in the jig head. And you can purchase brand new base pins for your molds from several different suppliers. So that's it for right now, and I will get the pot heated up and do the second part of this video. Thanks. Okay, so now the lead pot is all heated up, and I am ready to pour. got the mold has been sitting on top of the pot while it's been heating up. It's extraordinarily hot, but that makes for a better pour when the mold itself is warm, because cold mold, the lead just seems to not pour down through very fluid. What we're going to do here is actually take a lead ingot, grab it with pliers, and to keep our hands away from the melted lead, and put the ingot right in, and you'll see just how hot this lead pot, or the lead in the pot, is, and the lead just melts right on down in place, and that's it. I've got the 3/8 and the 1/2 ounce, which is a 4/0 hook and a 5/0 hook, and I will just put the hooks in place. The base pins are already sitting there, and do a 5/0 hook as well. And then once you close the mold up, you once again want to make sure that this top seam is completely tight. If it's not for some reason, you want to open the mold back up, check to make sure the base pins are in the correct position, make sure the hooks are in the correct position, and then close the mold up, but always just make sure that your mold is closed tightly. So just put my gloves on here, and for this particular pot, all I need to do is just lift this handle slightly over top of the hole, and it pours right on out. And then we have 2 pours ready to go, and when I open this up, one stuck with one side, one stuck with the other, but you see there that we have a 5/0 1/2 ounce jig and a 4/0 3/8 ounce jig. Once they are poured, all you need to do is take the base pin out of the head just by wiggling it a little bit. Some of the jig molds that I have, the base pin sits a little deeper inside the head, and it does not want to come out as easily, so I have to use needle nose pliers and pop those out. They're a little more finicky, but this is a mold that allows the base pins to pop right on out. And then once, like I showed in the earlier part of the video when going over safety, once you've pulled it out of the mold, you just have the overpour or the spro, and cut that right off. And once that's cut off, what you can do is you can take that piece that's cut off, put it right back in the pot. It melts right away. And after that, you just want a container. Always have a container to file over, and you can just file that little burr right off of there, and you get a nice completed jig head right there, and it's all ready for paint. So the idea here is just to repeat that over and over and over. It can be a little monotonous, but just open the jig, load your hooks. Once your hooks are loaded, make sure your base pins are in place. You can do it one more time through, and then it's just pour as many as you have hooks, or as much time as you can allow to spend on doing it. I can actually personally sit here and do this all day long and never get tired of it, but there are other things that need to be attended to. So now we have another 5/0 hook, another 4/0 hook. Close the mold, make sure the mold is sealed tightly, safety equipment on, and pour away. Sets up almost immediately, and you end up with 2 beautifully poured jigs. And after that, again, just pull them out, pop out the base pin, which leaves you with a hole for the weed guard that's going to go in there. You want to cut the top off, and once you cut the overpour, you can take that, put it right back in the pot. It melts right away. File the top, and you're ready for paint. And that's what we'll talk about in the next video. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this portion. And what I'll do in the next one is go over painting the heads, and then there will be following videos for after painting the heads, adding the weed guards to the jig heads, and then making the skirts, color combinations, and putting it all together ready to catch some bass. So I once again thank you for watching, and I'd appreciate it if you'd like this page, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks.